We're in Cologne, Germany at the T&D PowerTech exhibition and conference. APC Media has conducted several interviews and discussions with exhibitors and participants. We trust that you will enjoy the video clips and look forward to meeting you at the next event. Good afternoon. We are at the T&D PowerTech exhibition in Cologne. With me today, Franz, a true industry profession. Oliver, welcome. It is wonderful to have you here today. You serve in multiple capacities, lecturer at the Technical University in Berlin, but also in terms of E.ON, responsible for regulation, and within Euroelectric. Please tell us a little bit more about your responsibilities within E.ON.
Thanks for having me, first of all, Chris, and for the chance to be here in Cologne and talk to you. So maybe to start with E.ON, my responsibility really is European regulation, because E.ON is probably the most pan-European DSO, not necessarily in size, however you measure that, but in the sense that we are present in more European countries than anybody else. So we have grids in Germany, of course, but also in Sweden, in Romania, in Poland, and quite a few other places. And therefore, for us, whatever is decided in Europe with regards to energy policy, especially decarbonization, the road to net zero, is extremely important for us because we will feel the consequence in national implementation later, or if it is a regulation on European level, also directly, immediately. And this is why E.ON wants to have a department that takes care of that, and my colleagues and myself, though based in Essen, are more or less looking to Brussels all day, and of course to our little crystal ball that enables us to know the future. And then you mentioned also Euroelectric, and thank you for that. I have the honor and privilege for a second term now to serve as the chair of what is called the Distribution and Market Facilitation Committee. I believe I was chosen because I can say that without stumbling. And that is, Euroelectric is an association, of course. So the member in Germany is the BDW. And I'm representing not BDW, neither E.ON. I'm representing in that function really the DSOs within Europe. There are, of course, other associations that do that as well. But it's really, it's very much a communication role, and one where you have to bring different interests together, where you have to also balance a bit of different conflicting interests out. And I enjoy that very much because it's a lot of responsibility, but also a good chance to involve yourself into the debate.
Thank you very much. The European Commission and Europe has committed itself to the green policy, the limitation of carbon emissions. 2030 is an important milestone. The expectation is that we will eliminate carbon emissions altogether by 2050. The DSOs have a huge role to play in that, over and above the transformer manufacturing and transformer component industry. How do you see this evolve?
Well, as you rightly say, I believe the transition will not work without the DSO, and there are, I believe, two rather obvious reasons for that. One, it depends a bit on the member state that you're looking at, but let's say 75% of all what we call RES, so renewable energy sources, also the storage, is going to be connected to a DSO. So the bulk, if you want, of the job is being done by us, even though, of course, the intercontinental or internation exchange is done by the TSOs. The frequency will be done by them also in the future and so on. And then secondly, what we absolutely need to do to bring this road to net zero to completion is we need to electrify. And then we're right in your home, if you happen to have one in Europe. And that means you will buy, sooner or later, an electric car. You will probably change the way you heat. You will also probably insulate and so on, where it's not our job. But in the end, we believe that there will be much more electricity being used. And that then enables us to tell you what the electricity grid must look like that is able to do the job. And if I may give you a concrete example, I live in Essen. Essen is separated in 3 parts by 2 autobahns or motorways. And there is no district heating today south of the most southern motorway. If it stays like that, I can tell you exactly how much electricity I'm going to need to be able to heat all those houses that are south by electricity. If you decide, on the other hand, that you want the district heating to go down, then it will still not serve all the houses probably because of density questions. Then it's a different picture. But if you tell me the scenario, I can tell you which kind of electricity I need. And that's the debate that we're trying to have right now with the Commission, with national regulators. And Eurelectric, as you might be aware, has done a big study last year called Grids for Speed that tried to elaborate on how much investment we would need to do that. And if we would do it in a rather, let's say, traditional way, not using a lot of technology, not very intelligent also, if I may say it like that, we would probably need 67 billion a year in euros. If you do it more intelligently, then 55, but it's still a lot of money that needs to be invested in distribution grids to make the road to net zero passable. Let's put it this way.
In discussion with transformer industry professionals, there is one central theme: the sustainability and the longevity of the current growth. It is unprecedented. We have not had in recent years a growth and continued growth between 5 and 10%, certain markets certainly into double digits. To determine how long this will continue, there are 2 ways of looking at this: at the supply side and the demand side. You are sitting on the demand side. How do you look at the longevity of the current growth spurt? Will it continue till 2030? Will it continue after 2030? And the reason why I'm asked this, a lot of the transformer OEMs are faced with challenges. Should they continue investing? Should they invest more? How do you see it?
Well, I believe the answer is rather straightforward. So if I may take that more as an E.ON answer, we've just communicated our long-term procurement strategy, which has given parts of the European market actually a lot of transparency about what we want to do and how much, really in units. And then we've agreed in longer-term contracts. We have ordered tens of thousands of kilometers of cable, for instance. And by all means, what we see as a reaction from the OEM side, there are press announcements by some of them that more or less say, yes, because of what E.ON has done here, we are able to take the decision to increase capacity, to open that second line or reopen it or whatever it is. There are 2 more things I believe that are relevant. We've asked our technology and technical colleagues lately, now what if the new government wants to take it more slowly? What happens then? And they said, no problem, we will find other places to put the stuff because there is also a backlog of things that we need to do and that now are postponed because other things are even more important, namely to connect the next wind farm or so. And then thirdly, again, looking at Grids for Speed, you can roughly say that the RAB will double itself, so the regulated asset base, the physical asset on the ground. And that means also that the amount of replacement that we will need to do eventually will almost be double. Yes, stuff might last a little longer and so on, but roughly speaking, we're doing a step change really. And therefore, I would be rather optimistic that also, let's say in 2045, the amount of transformers that we need is still going to be at least higher as it was, let's say, in 2020 or in 2010.
In our discussion before we started, you mentioned FSX and the new regulation on that. Could you share a little bit more on this?
Well, as probably most people are aware, the European Union decided that they wanted to phase out SF6 as an insulation agent, which is especially relevant for switchgear and also for transformers. And that means that it needs to be replaced if you can't show, there are a few derogations, but let's say it needs to be replaced. And that, of course, is a challenge because the technologies to replace it are, you can divide them into 2, let's say, trajectories. One trajectory is you use another agent that has very similar chemical, let's say, reactions or no reactions because that's what you want. And then you can use vacuum. And of course, the vacuum has its own challenges because everything gets a bit larger. And if you now imagine working in an inner city like Amsterdam, large is not what you want, so you see the challenge. And it is apparent here, if you walk through the halls here in Cologne, there are a lot of companies who work on that issue, and it has created quite a buzz in the end. From E.ON's perspective, we have, and that has also been communicated, we have secured what we need, also in SF6.3, so we will be compliant, at least in low and medium voltage. But it is a challenge for the industry because you take out something and it needs to be replaced by a new technology. There has been no long-term testing, at least not in the field, and so on. And then in parallel to that, there's another discussion, and that is on PFASs. And that is, again, a chemical group of family of substances. And it's relevant because the agents that you could use to replace the SF6 are actually PFASs. So if those are out of the market also, then we're really getting into trouble, I would believe. The higher in the grid you get, the longer the time in the regulation, but also the more difficult it gets. So if we're looking at high voltage, gas insulated, that is something where we would really like the Commission to revisit the decisions and have a real good look at the market and what's going on, because otherwise things could get rather difficult in supplying what we need, replacing what we need, in also what happens if something breaks and you can only replace it by something that fits, and so on. So there are quite a few challenges that need to be kept in mind. But generally speaking, we're taking out a gas that is very, very harmful to the atmosphere, and therefore, in general, we couldn't agree more. The question is, how do we do this most efficiently?
You've addressed some of the challenges. If I can ask you, what are the opportunities to the DSOs? And how do you see this?
It's a bit of an opportunity that you need to create. But in a large company like ours, we of course also use the opportunity, and this is also apparent in our procurement strategy, to also downsize the amount of alternatives that we have. So to make the asset much more stringent, much more standardized, which helps in a lot of ways. It helps with the training of the people. It helps, again, with spare parts. It helps with documentation and so on, because what you don't want is that everybody who has to service this thing reads the manual for 2 hours before they do so, because we don't have those 2 hours. So I believe the chance really is, to present ourselves as not only in we organize the CO2-free electricity part as very environmental friendly, but also in terms of we care for the environment like we do in many other ways, and we are supporting this SF6 phase out. And then, like I said, standardization is probably a chance that's also created by that.
Oliver, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All of the best. Bye-bye.
Same to you. Thanks.
Good.